The reality TV nightmare. The moment I discovered my parents filmed my panic for a Pranks Gone Wrong pilot episode, starring me. My name is Alex Vance, and my life is objectively pretty great. I am 24, living in a cool, slightly overpriced loft in Los Angeles, and working as a freelance digital artist. But my parents, David and Carol, own the concept of extra. They aren't just rich, they are performative rich. Think custom cars, social media stunts, and a relentless need to be the main character. A few weeks ago, they told me they had partnered with a major venture capital firm for a massive life altering investment opportunity for my art career. It sounded perfect. This morning, Christmas Eve, I was sitting in their sprawling, impeccably designed home in Malibu, getting ready for the supposed final interview with the CEO of this mysterious VC firm. The setup was elaborate. The living room was converted into a sleek, minimalist interview set, two plush leather chairs, a glass table holding a massive contract folder, and lighting that made my skin look flawless, professional, yet inviting. My mom, Carol, fussed with my tie. Remember your passion, sweetie, sell the dream. This isn't just a grant, it's a lifestyle change. Dad, David handed me a bottle of water. The CEO, Mr. Sterling, is ruthless, but he appreciates authenticity. Don't hold back. The clock hit 10:00 a.m. A chime went off. He's logging in, Dad whispered dramatically. On the 80-inch flat-screen TV which dominated one wall, the video conference began. A face appeared, a severe-looking man in a suit with a salt and pepper goatee and intimidating glasses. Mr. Sterling. Mr. Vance, Sterling's voice was deep and clipped. Let's be candid. Your work is excellent, but we invest in personal brands. We need to see passion under pressure. So let's begin with a little stress test. The room's temperature suddenly plummeted. A blast of frigid air hit me, making me visibly shiver. We like artists who can handle extreme working conditions, Sterling said without blinking. Now, Alex, tell me about your 5-year plan. I tried to talk, but my teeth were chattering. I forced myself to focus on the numbers in the contract folder. I plan to expand my virtual reality installation concepts, focusing on the immersive experience. Suddenly, a loud, piercing alarm blared from hidden speakers throughout the room. It was the sound of a fire alarm, sharp and relentless. Sterling didn't even flinch. I'm sorry I can't hear you. We need to see how you adapt to noise pollution, Alex. Please continue. I jumped up instinctively, looking for the source of the noise. Dad, the alarm, is it real? Ignore it. It's probably a minor glitch, Dad shouted over the piercing sound, pushing me back into my seat. Keep talking about the revenue models. I was panicking now. The cold was intense. The alarm was unbearable, and the man on the screen looked like he was enjoying my suffering. I tried to flip open the massive contract folder to find a phone number, but the clasp was locked. The revenue model is based on premium licensing. I tried to continue my voice tight when the screen flashed a terrifying message in huge block red letters. System breach. Malibu. Grid offline. Emergency security lockdown initiated. What does that mean? I yelled, my heart slamming against my ribs. Dad, Mom, is the house locked? It's an internal system error. Alex, don't worry about it, Mom said, but her voice was tight. I can't access my phone, I shouted, pulling my useless device out of my pocket. The Wi-Fi is down. Mr. Sterling leaned closer to the camera. Your demeanor is becoming unmarketable, Mr. Vance. We need calm in a crisis. Now, if you can't tell me your 5-year plan, perhaps you can tell me what you plan to do when your entire investment portfolio is wiped out. With that, the TV screen didn't just go dark, it cracked with a sound like shattering glass, and then exploded in a flash of smoke and sparks. I screamed, falling out of the chair and onto the floor, choking on the acrid smoke. The fire alarm was still shrieking. I scrambled backward, desperately trying to get to the nearest exit, my mind racing, fire smoke lockdown, and a shattered screen. Get out! We need to get out! I yelled at my parents, who were standing frozen by the mantelpiece. I crawled to the nearest door, yanking on the handle. It didn't budge. The security lockdown was real. I was trapped in a cold, smoky, deafening room. I finally gave up, slumping against the door, burying my head in my hands, in complete, utter panic. Then the shrieking fire alarm suddenly cut off. The frigid air stopped. The smoke quickly dissipated, sucked away by hidden vents. The room was silent. I slowly looked up. My parents weren't running toward me to help. They weren't even looking at me. They were both looking directly past me toward the ceiling, their faces absolutely beaming. And then Dad spoke, his voice booming with forced, theatrical excitement, not toward me, but toward a hidden camera. And cut. That's a wrap on the panic sequence, Alex. That was pure gold. We got the full emotional breakdown. I looked past my shoulder, following their gaze. High in the corner of the room, nestled behind a faux decorative beam, was a large professional-grade video camera with a bright red light blinking. The truth hit me colder and harder than the fake AC. The VC interview, the stress test, the explosion, the lockdown, none of it was real. It was all a set. The extravagant, life changing investment, Alex, Mom announced, walking over and pulling me to my feet, her hands resting on my shoulders with sickening cheer. It's the pilot episode for our new reality show, Pranks Gone Wrong, and you, darling, are our star. The silence in the room was now more deafening than the fake fire alarm had been. I stood there, smoke detectors and strobe lights still mounted to the ceiling, staring at the red blinking eye of the camera. My entire life, the careful planning, the successful career, all felt like shattered glass. A pilot episode. I repeated, my voice flat, devoid of energy. The emotional exhaustion was total. You mean to tell me the massive VC investment was a reality show, and you just filmed my legitimate panic attack? Mom, Carol beamed and pulled a small silver remote from her pocket, pressing a button. The large flat screen TV, which had been destroyed, slid apart like a stage curtain, revealing a massive plush video monitor showing a perfect playback of my meltdown. My face pale with fear, my desperate scramble for the door, and the final moment of utter defeat. Oh, darling, look at that close up, she cooed. The terror in your eyes is authentic. We couldn't have scripted that. That's money, sweetie, pure money. Dad. David walked over and put a heavy arm around my shoulders. He was wearing an Imatera small device worn by film directors to gauge audience engagement. It's not just a show, Alex, it's a disruption, he said, sounding like he was pitching to shareholders. The world is tired of fake pranks with actors. We are giving them raw, real-life trauma. We signed a deal with Omni Media to produce a pilot called Pranks Gone Wrong, the Family Edition. You are the protagonist, the star, the unwitting victim. I shoved his arm off. Unwitting. You terrorized me. You made me think I was locked in a burning house while my entire financial future was being wiped out. This is emotional abuse. We were aiming for maximum emotional velocity in a controlled environment. Mom corrected me, still watching the replay. And you know the best part, Dad continued, pacing excitedly. The extravagant, life-changing investment is still real. It's your salary for the first season. We've guaranteed you a 7-figure contract. I felt a surge of cold fury that finally eclipsed the fear. I don't want your money. I want my career, my respect, and my privacy. I'm leaving, and I'm calling my lawyer. I spun toward the door I had tried to exit moments before. Ah, about that, Dad said, smiling thinly. He picked up the massive contract folder, the one with the locked clasp that I couldn't open during the prank. He finally flipped it open. We knew you might react with a typical millennial entitlement, as Mr. Stister Sterling, who is actually just an actor named Barry, put it. So, before the interview began, while you were drinking your water and marveling at the set, you signed a document. He pushed the contract toward me. The document was titled Vance Family Trust, Reconstitution and Entertainment Non-Disclosure Agreement. My signature was clearly visible on the bottom right corner. That wasn't a VC application, Alex. That was your agreement to participate. Mom explained, her cheer back in full force. You signed away your rights to litigation privacy, and most importantly, your right to quit until the end of the pilot commitment. It was a condition of retaining the family trust fund access. I stared at the paper. The fine print was impossible to read, but the reality was clear. My own obsession with success and my reliance on the family trust had been weaponized against me. The whole performance wasn't just a prank, it was a legal entrapment. This is unconscionable, I whispered, the paper shaking in my hands. It's great television, Dad corrected. And legally sound. We can't have our star walk off set, can we? The commitment is for the next 12 episodes, and here's the kicker. Alex, the show concept is based on calculated escalation. He pulled up a digital storyboard on the large screen. Episode 1, The Doomed Interview. Check, you nailed the panic, he said, tapping the screen. Episode 2, The Unseen Violation. Check, the confrontation and the contract reveal. But the rest of the season, Mom took over, her eyes sparkling with competitive excitement. We raise the stakes. We don't just create panic in your home. We integrate the pranks into your actual life. Your job, your friends, your relationships. Every time you think you're safe, we pull the rug out from under you. Dad zoomed in on the final storyboard panel. The title was chilling. Episode 12, The Final Betrayal. And the ultimate payoff. The audience votes on which life-altering disaster they want us to inflict on you. Dad finished with a triumphant flourish. You are locked in, Alex. You are the star of the show, whether you like it or not. And the cameras are always rolling. I looked around the room, no longer seeing a living room, but a brightly lit cage. My parents weren't just my parents. They were my showrunners and my jailers. My nightmare had just been renewed for a whole season. The moment I escaped the set of the living room, I didn't head for my bedroom. I headed for the nearest phone charger, my mind reeling. The contract was a trap, and the camera was the warden. I needed help, and the only person I trusted was my best friend Chloe. I rushed to the kitchen, a safe zone, or so I hoped. I grabbed my phone, and the first thing I did was check my data usage. Everything was normal. No weird apps, no major drain. They wouldn't be stupid enough to use my own phone to film, I thought. I typed a frantic text to Chloe. Call me now, emergency. My parents trapped me in a reality show and filmed my panic attack. I signed a contract. I need a lawyer. I hit send. The message failed. I tried again. Send failed. I checked the Wi Fi. It was connected. I checked the cellular signal. Full bars. I tried calling her. The call went straight to voicemail. Frustrated, I walked toward the back door, intent on just driving straight to her place in Santa Monica. My hand reached for the lock, and suddenly a loud synthesized voice boomed from the overhead kitchen speakers. Attention player Alex attempting unauthorized exit. Please remember your contract includes a stay within perimeter clause for maximum content generation. Please return to the designated area. I froze. I slowly looked up at the ceiling. Hidden in the recessed lighting, I could clearly see a tiny pinprick lens. My parents walked into the kitchen, Mom sipping a smoothie, Dad carrying a clipboard. They looked annoyingly fresh and relaxed. Seriously, guys, you bugged the kitchen, I demanded. Bugged, darling. That's such a low-tech word. Mom sighed. It's a comprehensive content integration system. It ensures we don't miss any valuable unscripted moments, and the perimeter clause is non-negotiable. You blocked my communications, I accused, pointing at my useless phone. Dad flipped a page on his clipboard. The stay within perimeter clause also includes a non-disclosure integrity protocol. We can't have you spoiling the pilot's premise before it airs. Any external comms mentioning the show, the contract, or your panic attack are instantly intercepted and filtered by a proprietary algorithm. So I'm completely isolated. I realized the walls truly closing in. Just until the season finale, Sweetie, 12 episodes. Think of the narrative tension. Mom cheered. I knew I couldn't beat them physically or legally right now. I had to beat them logistically. I had to exploit the rules of their own ridiculous show. Fine, I said, putting on the fakest, most theatrical smile I could muster. If the cameras are always on, then let's give the audience a show. What's the schedule for episode 3? Dad's eyes lit up. Now that's the spirit. Episode 3 is titled The Roommate Reveal. We decided to integrate the prank into your actual life today. We've arranged for you to move out of your loft and back here to Malibu full-time for the duration of the show. Move back here? Why? Logistics. Alex, Dad said, gesturing broadly. It's too expensive to manage security and content integration at your loft. Plus, the family unit is gold. We've already packed your essential belongings and arranged for your new roommate to move in. You're meeting her right now. Just then, the front door chime rang. A young woman with vibrant purple hair and a ridiculously oversized camera bag walked into the living room. She wasn't just a person, she looked like a walking piece of performance art. Alex meets Sky, your new temporary roommate. Mom introduced her. Sky rushed over to me, holding out her hand. Oh my God, Alex, I'm such a huge fan of your abstract digital work. I'm an immersive content creator. Your parents told me you're starting a new art collaborative here. I'm so excited I'll be filming everything. I shook her hand, my mind racing. She wasn't a friend. She was a plant. A live-in permanent surveillance system disguised as a quirky collaborator. Wait, I said, looking from Sky back to my parents. You moved my things out, forced me to relocate, and put a spy in my space. That's not a prank, that's coercion. We call it environmental shock and awe, Dad corrected proudly. And don't worry about your loft, darling. We rented it out for the next 3 months. To the camera crew. Camera crew. I looked at Sky, who was already setting up a small camera on the kitchen counter, clearly enjoying the drama. I couldn't talk to Chloe. I couldn't leave, and now I couldn't even have a private moment. You want me to star in your show? I asked, my smile now dangerously sharp. You want unscripted chaos. We live for it, Mom affirmed. Fine, I said, taking a deep breath. Then let's make some content. But if I'm the star, I'm taking creative control. Starting now, I'm renaming the pilot episode. I looked directly into the lens of the hidden kitchen camera, then at my parents who were watching with anticipatory glee. The name of the show isn't Pranks Gone Wrong, I stated clearly, my voice low and dangerous. It's the calculated revenge of Alex Vance, and it starts when your cameras blink. With that, I grabbed the massive folder containing the legally binding contract, walked over to the kitchen sink, and held the expensive paper under the running faucet, letting the ink run and bleed into a useless, illegible mess. Cut, Dad screamed in genuine panic. Alex, stop, that's a crucial legal document. It's just paper, Dad, I replied, dropping the sodden mess into the garbage disposal. And legal documents are just wrapping paper for a lie. Now, where is my room, and when is the next shooting schedule? I had no legal recourse, no privacy, and a roommate who was secretly recording my every move. But I did have the one thing my parents didn't anticipate: awareness. and awareness is the first step towards sabotage. The Malibu mansion was no longer a home. It was a high-tech studio designed for my humiliation. But now it was also my territory. I had no legal contract, no privacy, and a mandated purple-haired surveillance operative named Sky. But I had awareness, and that was the true game changer. My first move was to establish the boundaries of the surveillance. Sky, I need to know the coverage map. I demanded, finding her in the editing suite, Dad's home office, where she was cataloging the footage from my panic attack. Oh, hi, Alex. The coverage map, standard pilot configuration, she chirped without looking up from her multi-screen monitor. We have static cams in all common areas, motion sensors outside the perimeter, and the pinhole mics are everywhere. Don't worry, they're invisible. And what about the live feeds? I pressed. Where does the footage go? Right here, baby. All routed to the main server. David doesn't trust cloud storage for proprietary emotional content. He reviews everything. That was the weakness. My dad, David, was the quality controller. He didn't just want content, he wanted perfect content that served his manufactured narrative. My parents were now focused on setting up the scene for episode 4, The Budget Blockade, where they planned to make my life miserable by canceling my credit cards and locking me out of my digital art programs. Alex, darling, you look stressed. Perfect. Mom called out, walking past with a handful of production notes. Remember, episode 4 is all about financial desperation. We need tears. You'll get a performance. I promised, walking straight into the kitchen, a heavily filmed zone, and pulling out my phone. I couldn't text Chloe, but I could use the search engine. I typed in, how to film an authentic reaction to financial ruin without actually being ruined. I scrolled through articles, making sure the camera had a perfect shot of my screen. I then typed a series of absurdly fake searches, best methods for faking a tearful phone call, Hollywood tips for screaming, and how to throw an artistic tantrum. The goal wasn't to communicate with the outside world. The goal was to communicate directly with my director, me father. Later that afternoon, the cameras were rolling. Mom, with a theatrical sigh, handed me a statement showing my bank account was zeroed out. I was supposed to scream. I was supposed to panic. Instead, I gave an Oscar-worthy performance of stoic, calculated disappointment. I looked directly into the nearest camera. Well, that's a shame, I said, my voice deadpan. I guess I'll just have to move on to my second career choice, undercover investigative journalism. I'll start by looking into the suspiciously large production budget for Pranks Gone Wrong and how many labor laws were potentially violated. The camera remained focused on me, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw Dad's reaction on the monitor. He wasn't amused, he was furious. My performance was wrong for his show. The sabotage, my real work, began that night. My parents and Sky were asleep, or at least supposed to be. I crept out of my room and headed toward the editing suite, carrying only a flashlight and one of the old expired Blockbuster coupons from the Christmas prank. The door to the office was locked, but my parents in their hubris had only focused on keeping me out of the house, not out of their computers. I knew my dad's password. It wasn't clever. It was the name of his first failed startup, followed by his birth year, Vance Vision 1968. I slipped inside, went straight to the main server, and accessed the raw footage files. Oracle Assist, I whispered, relying on my tech background to navigate the system. The true footage was in a massive file labeled P01 Final Cut. I located the segments from episode 1, my actual emotional breakdown. I used the Blockbuster coupon as my key. I didn't need to damage the footage. I needed to make it unusable for the network. I went into the metadata of the footage file and simply changed the date and timestamp of the panic sequence from Christmas Eve 2024 to May 12, 1999, the exact expiration date printed on the Blockbuster coupon. Then I changed the file format from the network standard MPEG-4 to a ridiculously obsolete, non-compliant format known only to niche digital artists. The conversion was fast, discreet, and irreversible without the original compression key, which I immediately deleted. The footage is intact but effectively worthless, I noted, smiling grimly. When the network tries to ingest the final cut, they'll get a severe format error and a 2-decade-old timestamp. It will look like a rookie editing mistake, not sabotage. I logged out and deleted the search history for the conversion format. My parents would assume their expensive system had a glitch. The confrontation. I returned to my room just as the house lights flickered on. It was morning. I walked downstairs, finding Dad yelling into his phone while staring at the editing monitor. What do you mean, corrupted footage? He bellowed. It was pristine. I watched the panic playback myself, checked the compression, find the original. He saw me and slammed the phone down. You. Did you touch the server? Me. I feigned innocence, pouring myself a cup of coffee. Why would I touch the server? I was sleeping, preparing for my financial crisis. The footage of your breakdown. The core of the pilot is unusable. The network can't ingest the format. Oh, that's awful. I said, taking a slow sip of coffee. It looks like your expensive system had a major technical glitch. Maybe you should have used a better compression method, or maybe you should have signed a contract with a better star. My father stared at me, the confusion battling with suspicion. He couldn't prove it was me, but he knew. The fear in his eyes wasn't financial, it was the fear of losing control. We're changing the format of the show, Dad announced, his voice dangerously low. The pranks are over, Alex. Now we're going to use the unscripted reality. Starting today, episode 5 is about us finding the mole who sabotaged the pilot, and the number one suspect is you. The cameras, which had been passive observers, suddenly felt like armed guards. My sabotage had worked, but it had only intensified the game. My next move had to be outside the house where the cameras couldn't follow. My successful sabotage of the pilot footage only served to intensify my surveillance. My father, David, now viewed me not as a victim, but as a hostile rival. The search for the mole is officially underway, Mom Carol announced cheerfully at breakfast, while Sky meticulously filmed my expression as I ate organic toast. Episode 5 is all about paranoia and intrigue. We're installing new military-grade surveillance equipment today, Alex, just for you. I knew direct communication was impossible. My phone was monitored, the Wi-Fi was filtered, and Sky was a permanent fixture. I needed to send a message that was unfilterable by the parental algorithm and uninterpretable by the general audience, but perfectly clear to the one person I trusted, Chloe. I need to go to my studio, I announced. Since you've sabotaged my career and frozen my finances, I should at least be productive. I need to finish the digital entropy installation for the upcoming gallery show. My parents exchanged a glance. Preventing me from working might look bad for the show's narrative, especially since they'd framed the whole thing as an investment in my art. Excellent idea, darling, Dad quickly agreed. Artistic tension, Sky. You go with her. Film the process. Every frustrated stroke of the stylus is content. The art of subversion. My old studio and industrial space in the Arts District was one of the few places not completely rigged by my parents, though I knew the cameras Sky carried would be enough. As we drove downtown, I started talking to Sky, establishing the Alex Vance character, for the audience pretentious, artsy, and deeply symbolic. You know, Sky, I mused, looking dramatically out the window, art is all about meta-narratives. The true meaning is often hidden within the compositional structure, not the surface image. Sky, dutifully filming, nodded enthusiastically. Oh, that's deep, Alex, perfect for the voiceover. When we reached the studio, I immediately went to work on the main piece for the show, a massive digital canvas called Digital Entropy. It was an abstract work based on complex coding structures and color theory. I began creating the image, working on the deepest, most subtle layer of the file, the area that Chloe, as a fellow digital artist, would immediately check for my signature techniques. I created a series of small, colored pixel blocks that, to the untrained eye, like my parents or Sky's, looked like random glitches in the background. Block 1. Bright orange represents the letter C, using a simplified hexadecimal code that Chloe and I used for file naming. Block 2, deep blue, represents the letter L. Block 3, red, represents the letter O. Block 4, yellow, represents the letter E. Block 5, magenta, represents the number 9, which meant emergency in our old college code. I spelled out C-L-O-E, Chloe, emergency. I made sure I never zoomed in on this layer while Sky was filming, only talking about the surface-level artistic choices. This red line represents the constriction of personal liberty. I dramatically informed Sky, pointing nowhere near the actual coded blocks. The slight pixelation is an homage to pre-2005 media format corruption. Sky was eating it up. Oh my god, I'm getting chills. The audience is going to think you're a genius. The delivery. The finished piece, a massive, stunningly complex digital file, needed to be delivered to the gallery coordinator via an encrypted online transfer. This was the moment of truth. I transferred the file to my laptop. Sky, can you hold this for me? I need to use the restroom, I asked, handing her the laptop. She took it, thrilled to be handling the final art. I need to upload this from a public connection, I called out on my way to the door. Too many network issues here. I walked across the street to a small, greasy spoon coffee shop. I logged into the public Wi-Fi, which was too unstable for my parents to filter without shutting down the entire district. I logged into the gallery's secure transfer site and uploaded the massive digital entropy file. But I didn't stop there. I went back into the file's sharing permissions and added one simple unlogged recipient, Chloe's personal defunct student email address. My parents' communication filter would recognize my work email and the gallery's domain as safe communication, allowing the transfer to go through, but they would never flag a random old forgotten student email address used only for a secondary notification. I was sending Chloe a massive file she didn't need, but buried within the data was a tiny flashing color-coded distress signal. The aftermath. We returned to the Malibu mansion. I was exhausted but relieved. The message was out. The next morning, however, I was met with a chilling response. Dad was in the living room staring at the monitor, his face pale and furious. Next to him stood a new character, a heavy-set man in a plain black suit carrying a large metallic box. "You're very clever, Alex," Dad said, his voice quiet and dangerous. We analyzed the digital entropy file after the upload. Our proprietary AI flagged the pixel arrangement as a potential steganographic image, a hidden message. "You tried to contact your friend." "I was merely experimenting with digital deconstruction," I said, putting on my most aloof artist mask. "Save the performance," Mom said coldly. Chloe called us immediately after receiving the random file transfer. She was concerned about the emergency. "We told her you were undergoing an intensive new media installation therapy and she was interfering with your process. You ruined the chance for help." I felt a crushing wave of despair. "No, darling, we sealed the perimeter," Mom corrected. Dad gestured to the man in the black suit. "Meet Agent Thorne. He's a professional digital security consultant. He's here to ensure that no meta-narrative escapes this house again. And he's brought a gift." The man opened the metallic box. Inside was a black, sleek, form-fitting wristwatch. "This, Alex," Dad said, pointing to the watch, "is a level 5 location and communications interdictor. It's physically connected to your nervous system and will notify us if you step outside a 50-foot radius of the house. More importantly, it emits a localized electromagnetic pulse that will instantly fry any non-Aegis technology phone's laptop's public Wi-Fi within a 10-foot radius. Agent Thorne will activate the interdictor if you attempt any digital communication again." He smiled a dark, victorious smile. "Your next episode is episode 6, The Total Blackout. You have no phone, no friends, no money, and no means of escape. The show has truly begun." The weight of the level 5 location and communications interdictor, the sleek black wristwatch, felt like a manacle on my wrist. Agent Thorne, the cold-eyed digital warden, had activated it immediately. I was living under a total blackout. My own devices were useless within 10 feet of me, and any attempt to use a public connection would trigger the EMP pulse, frying the nearest access point and alerting my parents instantly. The goal of episode 6, Alex, is sensory deprivation and psychological containment. Mom Carol explained brightly over breakfast while Sky filmed us with a handheld camera. "We want the audience to see what true isolation looks like for a digital native." I was locked in, digitally silent and surrounded by cameras. Thorne was a passive but constant presence, often found in the editing suite or lurking near the perimeter, monitoring the interdictor's signal. I spent the morning testing the limits of my cage. The 50-foot perimeter limit was absolute. Step beyond it, and a piercing high-frequency tone sounded on my watch, accompanied by a digital voice warning unauthorized exit attempt. I needed to find a physical way to communicate something that relied on the old-school analog world my parents, obsessed with digital flair, had completely forgotten. The analog loophole. I knew my parents' vanity was my greatest asset. They wanted a beautiful show. I approached my father, David, who was currently reviewing security footage with Thorne. "Dad, the light in my room is terrible," I complained, adopting a tone of artistic diva annoyance. "The audience needs to see the emotional nuances of my containment. I need natural light. I want to spend the afternoon on the balcony, working on a new drawing series." Dad hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, it adds production value. Sky film the stark solitude of the sea view. Thorne, keep the perimeter locked down." The balcony overlooking the Pacific was beautiful, but isolated. I spent the next 4 hours drawing furiously on a large sketch pad. Sky filmed occasionally, asking philosophical questions about my artistic confinement. I wasn't drawing landscapes or self-portraits. I was using a visual cipher that Chloe and I had invented in art school, a combination of geometric shapes, color fields, and specific symbols that conveyed complex information. My coded message. 1. Symbol. A stylized old sock representing the initial prank distress signal. 2. Color. A vibrant sapphire blue representing the wrapping paper, my parents' house. 3. Geometry. A repeating inverted triangle pattern, our symbol for trap or legal entanglement. 4. Text in tiny, almost invisible print integrated into the lines. The address of my old loft and the words, "Look up." The message translated, I was betrayed/trapped in the blue sapphire house. Go to my old loft address and look for a signal. The weakness of this plan was getting the message out of the house. I couldn't email it. I couldn't photograph it. The bait. I waited until the late afternoon. I knew my parents regularly ordered food from an upscale catering service in Santa Monica, the ultimate sign of their performative wealth. The delivery driver arrived an older man named Gary, who always wore thick prescription glasses and a baseball cap. He was an outside contractor, not part of the production team. My parents never saw him as a risk, just a prop. I quickly walked into the kitchen as Gary was setting down the massive covered trays. My watch immediately pinged, warning me I was near the perimeter edge, but I ignored it. "Excuse me, Gary," I called out, my voice loud and deliberately strained for the camera. "I'm so sorry, but my parents are having me draw a concept sketch for the new catering menu. It's a highly confidential artistic brief." Almighty, I walked over to him, holding the sketch pad up and acting overly important, making sure the surveillance camera could see the sketch. "They want your opinion on the composition," I whispered, holding the large sketch pad close to his face near his baseball cap. "Tell them what you think." As Gary leaned in to look at the drawing, the elaborate coded trap, I quickly performed the move. It was the moment the entire segment relied on. I didn't try to hide anything. I deliberately fumbled the sketch pad, making a loud, clumsy noise, and let the entire page rip from the binding. The page fluttered to the floor, landing squarely next to Gary's shoes. "Oh no!" I gasped dramatically, looking straight into the camera. "My masterpiece, the wind." "It's okay, kid," Gary mumbled instinctively, bending down to retrieve the torn page. "No, don't touch it," I yelled, reaching down, but I was slow. Gary picked up the page, handed it to me, and then immediately returned to his delivery task, completely oblivious. The camera had the moment, the dramatic loss of the art, the artistic frustration. But the real success was in the transfer. Gary, the outside variable, had picked up the paper, obscuring the image from the cameras for the vital 2 seconds it took him to lift the page and hand it back. I had the original drawing, but my goal wasn't the original. "Dad, I need a new copy," I shouted, rushing to the editing suite. "I need to scan this and send the concept to the gallery." My father, annoyed by the interruption but desperate for the content, allowed me a brief moment with the high-resolution scanner/printeras, long as Thorne stood directly behind me. I quickly scanned the original drawing. Then, before hitting print, I initiated a highly encrypted low-resolution transmission that piggybacked on the printer's own Wi-Fi signal, too localized and non-internet facing for the interdictor to immediately fry, and too fast for the external filters to catch. The transmission went straight to the catering company's office printer, a place my parents would never look, as a temporary file labeled Catering Menu Concept 01. Gary, the delivery driver, was the only one who would access that physical printer later that day. I had traded the highly visible digital Chloe emergency message for a physical low visibility package that was about to be intercepted by the delivery driver. Later that evening, as I stared at the ocean, Dad walked onto the balcony, a self-satisfied smirk on his face. "You're contained, Alex. You have nowhere to go," he said, enjoying the moment. The total blackout worked perfectly. I smiled, looking past him. "Maybe so, Dad. But sometimes the best way to leak information is to package it as something completely disposable, like a delivery menu." The next morning, thousands of miles away, my friend Chloe was about to receive a mysterious package via FedEx, a laminated high-resolution catering menu with an inexplicable, highly coded drawing of a crying sock on the back. The day after I sent the coded sketch, the tension in the Malibu house was suffocating. My parents were convinced they had won the information war. Agent Thorne's presence was heavier, and Mom Carol spent the day gleefully planning Episode 7, The Love Life Laceration, where they intended to contact my ex-boyfriend and film my reaction to an engineered public humiliation. Meanwhile, I waited. My only hope rested on two things: Chloe's artistic intuition and the delivery schedule of a Santa Monica catering service. The receiver. Chloe, 200 miles away in her cluttered Venice Beach studio, was having a bewildering morning. A FedEx box had arrived, unusual since I rarely used physical mail. Inside, she found a high-quality laminated catering menu from The Gilded Spoon and a short printed note, artistic concept sample, review composition, XOXO-A. Chloe, an abstract digital artist, immediately knew something was wrong. Anomaly 1. The medium. I never dealt with laminated physical printouts, especially not catering menus. Anomaly 2. The art. The back of the menu featured a strange complex drawing, a crying sock figure surrounded by jagged blue and black geometric patterns. Chloe didn't look at the surface image. She looked at the structure. She scanned the image and imported it into her specialized digital art analysis software, the very program my parents had locked me out of. Within seconds, the software highlighted the low saturation color blocks and the repeating inverted triangle pattern, the blue and black background. "That's the trap matrix," Chloe whispered to herself, recognizing the geometry code we'd used in college to create subversive art. "And the colors are spelling something." She isolated the small hidden text in the line work near the center of the sock figure. The message was fragmented, but clear. LOOKUP1. 4, 5, L, A, P. Chloe transcribed the numbers and letters look up. LAPD, the address of my old loft and the acronym for the Los Angeles Police Department. Alex is in trouble, Chloe realized, trapped in the blue house and telling me to go to the loft and look for a signal. The reconnaissance Chloe knew contacting the police was useless. My parents had signed a legal document, and she had no proof, only an encrypted sock drawing on a menu. She had to become the external operative. That afternoon, she drove to my old loft apartment, the site of the first season's surveillance. She remembered my old habit when I was stressed. I would always place a specific recognizable object on the ledge of my fire escape visible from the street below. She looked up at the loft window, scanning the fire escape ledge. It was empty. The lease had been transferred to my parents' production company, and they were using it to house the camera crew. She remembered the final cryptic part of the message, look up. She focused on the roof. My parents' obsession with keeping me inside the Malibu perimeter meant they had left a blind spot in the old loft's perimeter. Chloe accessed the public Wi-Fi from a coffee shop nearby and used a cheap commercial drone, something that wouldn't set off my parents' military-grade detection system, to fly up to the roof of the loft building. The drone's camera relayed the feed to her phone. The roof was empty except for a large decommissioned satellite dish, and taped to the back of the dish, where only someone looking down at the building could see, it was a single laminated piece of paper. Chloe zoomed in. It was an expired coupon for a free personal pan pizza, but written on the back in faint permanent marker was a clear, simple message. Need hardware key. Check the Christmas tree. Vance Vision, 1968. Chloe gasped. The coupon, the symbol of my original humiliation, was the key to my escape. The plan. Chloe understood. My parents, in their rush to set up the reality show, must have secured the real off switch for the entire content integration system, the physical hardware key in the most obvious, festive, and overlooked place, the Christmas tree, hidden among the extravagant gifts. The password Vance Vision 1968 was Dad's old ego-driven login. Chloe immediately abandoned the idea of a lawyer and embraced the chaos. She had to get into the Vance mansion, access the house without triggering the perimeter alarm, and retrieve the hardware key from the Christmas tree. She had to become the ultimate, unexpected variable in the reality show. She pulled out her phone and called the only entity that could get her past the security and surveillance, the Gilded Spoon catering service. Hello, Chloe said sweetly. I need to confirm a delivery for the Vance residence tonight. It's a special request, a very unique edible floral arrangement for their large holiday party. She knew my parents were too vain to turn away a high-profile, ostentatious catering delivery. She was no longer just my friend. She was now my unwitting accomplice, preparing to walk right onto the set of Pranks Gone Wrong. The mansion was suffocating under a veneer of forced festivity. My parents, David and Carol, were hosting a lavish mid-season investor mixer, the perfect excuse for a high production value episode. The Star Under Siege. The house was crawling with potential backers' production assistants, and crucially, a dizzying array of hidden and visible cameras. I was mic'd and watched by Agent Thorne's interdictor, forced to play the role of the miserable, isolated prodigal son while wearing an expensive restrictive suit. Remember, you're blocking Alex, Dad whispered to me, adjusting his own tuxedo. You need to look profoundly uncomfortable, like a creative soul caged by commerce. It's excellent B-roll. I played the role, perfectly standing near the massive, absurdly decorated Christmas tree, which was the centerpiece of the living room. It was smothered in custom ornaments, tinsel, and somewhere in that glittering disaster, the physical hardware key that could shut down this entire nightmare. Suddenly, a commotion started at the service entrance. The specialty floral arrangement is here, Mom chirped, rushing over with Sky, dutifully filming behind her. Get the reaction shot, Sky. This is going to be gorgeous. And then I saw her, Chloe. She was wearing a caterer's uniform that was slightly too large, a rigid chef's hat, and her purple hair was tucked tightly beneath a hairnet. She was pushing a cart piled high with silver service trays and a monstrous, over-the-top, edible floral display made entirely of sugar icing. She looked hilarious and terrifyingly focused. Our eyes met. There was no recognition, only the intense coded communication of two people who had planned complex artistic critiques for years. Chloe pushed her cart toward the main bar, her eyes scanning the room, the cameras, and the Christmas tree. She couldn't speak, and I couldn't risk a direct gesture. I had to give her the target location. I turned back to the Christmas tree. I pointed exaggeratedly at a small silver bell ornament, then immediately looked away, making my gesture seem like a bored flick of the wrist. I knew my father analyzing the footage would categorize that as random passive aggression. But Chloe understood. The silver bell was the color of the Vance family trust insignia, the ultimate source of the contract/betrayal. The key was hidden in the ornament. Now for the distraction. I needed to draw every camera and every parental eye away from Chloe's path to the tree. I took a deep breath. Dad, I called out, my voice booming with false confidence. I think this party is a little dull. It needs a moment of authentic anarchy in the aesthetic. I walked straight toward the elaborate, towering champagne fountain that was currently delighting a group of potential investors. It was the epitome of my parents' gaudy excess. No, Alex, stay on the perimeter. We need B-roll, Dad hissed, recognizing the danger in my eyes. The ultimate symbol of corrupt capital must be destroyed to create new art, I yelled, pulling a bottle of cheap sparkling cider I'd smuggled in my inner jacket pocket. I didn't knock the fountain over, that was too simple. I uncorked the cider and sprayed the entire sticky content straight into the main power control panel for the room's custom lighting rig. The effect was instantaneous and spectacular. The entire living room didn't just go dark. The multi-million-dollar lighting rig seized short-circuited and started flashing violently in a chaotic strobe effect of red, blue, and black. The investors screamed, glasses crashed, and production assistants shouted for emergency power. The strobe lighting blinded the professional cameras, making the footage completely unusable. Blackout, blackout. Mom screamed, her perfect performance shattered. In the chaos, Alex was the star. Everyone was staring at the man who had just destroyed the ambiance. The retrieval. This was Chloe's moment. Under the flashing epileptic lights, Chloe moved like a ghost. She approached the Christmas tree, her catering uniform blending into the panicked crowd. She quickly located the silver bell ornament I had pointed to. She didn't grab the bell. She knew that would be too obvious. She opened the small pocket on her chef's apron and pulled out a tube of fast-setting icing, the kind used to repair sugar sculptures. She squirted a precise amount of the sticky icing onto the silver bell and the branch securing the ornament in place. Then she reached deep into the tree, her hand disappearing past the thick tinsel, and found the power outlet for the entire tree's lighting system. She pulled the plug. The Christmas tree plunged into darkness. With the flash of the strobe lights, it looked like a burning ruin. As the production team rushed to the main breaker, Chloe silently stepped back. She wasn't holding the key. She was holding the plug of the Christmas tree lights. She slowly walked back to the catering cart. She looked at me, gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod, and then pushed her cart and the large, edible floral arrangement straight out the service door. The exit. Dad rushed over to me, grabbing my shoulder. You cost us the investor scene. You destroyed the rig. I gave you the best 5 minutes of reality television chaos anyone has ever seen, Dad. I gasped, still acting winded. Unscripted high-stakes chaos. You should be thanking me. Just then, Agent Thorne walked into the room, his face pale with alarm. He had been monitoring the digital static. Mr. Vance, Thorne said, his voice clipped. A secondary power source was momentarily engaged on the service exit's perimeter alarm. The Christmas tree's light plug was pulled from the socket. Dad froze. He looked at the massive dark tree. He looked at me. The key, Dad whispered, walking slowly toward the tree. The key to the system was in the silver bell connected to the lights. He reached up, grabbed the silver bell ornament, and tore it from the branch. The bell was intact, but there was a telltale smear of dried white icing on the back where the key should have been attached. It's gone, Mom breathed, seeing the evidence of the retrieval. The key is gone. I smiled a wide, genuine smile of pure victory. Looks like your surveillance system had a little glitch in the Matrix, Dad, just like the pilot footage. The key was out. Now Chloe needed to get to a safe digital space to upload the shutdown command. The endgame had begun. The tension was a palpable, suffocating entity in the house. The strobe lights were repaired, the guests were gone, and the only things left were the cameras and the cold realization of betrayal. The key is gone, my father David repeated, pacing frantically in front of the dark Christmas tree. The entire system is vulnerable. Alex, you're the only one who could have planned that diversion. Where did the catering girl take the key? I leaned against the mantelpiece, my face carefully blank, playing the role of the sullen, uncooperative star. I don't know, Dad. Maybe the catering staff were tired of your tips. Seems like an issue with your vendor vetting process. My mother, Carol, was far past performance. She was terrified. If that key is used to shut down the system, Omni Media will cancel the show, and we'll lose the production advance, Thorne. Where is the tracking signal for the key? Agent Thorne, his eyes narrowed with focused suspicion, spoke into his comms. The physical key secured within the silver bell casing does not have a GPS tracker. The only tracking we have is the level 5 interdictor on Alex's wrist. We know Alex hasn't left the perimeter, but we believe the key is now in the hands of the accomplice. She's already an hour ahead of us, Dad growled. She's probably heading for a public library or a university server to execute the shutdown command. We have to beat her to the system. I knew Chloe's destination, my old loft. She'd used the high-speed network there, hoping they hadn't completely shut it down. The missing piece. The key was out, but it was useless without the shutdown code. The code was not printed on the key. It was a random SATA 16-digit alphanumeric string that Dad changed every 3 weeks. I need the shutdown code, I told them, dropping my theatrical misery. You need me to help you win, right? The show can't end yet. I need an incentive to give you the code. Dad stared at me. You have no leverage, Alex. You're wearing the interdictor. You can't contact anyone. No, but I have the logic, I countered. The same logic that knew to spray cider on your lighting rig. The code is not random. It's a combination of symbols that holds emotional meaning for the project owner, you. You're the one who designed the security protocols. Mom's eyes widened. It's the Vance Vision 1968 formula, David, a combination of your emotional anchors. You set that code weeks ago. Dad sighed, beaten. Fine, it's too complex to guess. The code is hidden within the first symbol of the project, the very first truly extravagant thing we bought for the show. He gestured to the massive glittering Christmas tree. It's in the tree topper, the custom-made LED-lit angel. We used the custom serial number as the base. You want the code? Dad challenged me. Get up there and read the serial number. But I'm watching every move. Give me the right code, and I'll give you something you actually want, the right to delete every frame of your panic attack from episode 1. I nodded. That was the leverage I needed. The true evidence of my humiliation had to be erased. I climbed the small ladder set up next to the tree. I reached the top, the massive custom-lit angel practically blinding me. I found the serial number A14X99C05CN. As I read the number, I knew I couldn't just tell my parents the code. They would win. I had to get the code to Chloe first. The final performance. I looked straight into the camera, mounted on the ceiling, the same camera that had filmed my meltdown. I had no paper, no pen, and no voice that wasn't being monitored. I had only the tree topper and the cameras. I slowly began to speak the code aloud, but not the full serial number. I spoke the shutdown code that I knew Dad would have derived from the serial number. The logic was irresistible to his narcissistic ego. The logic: Alex's first name initial, the year of his birth, 99. Carol's initials, the month of the pilot, 05. David's initial V, the year of his birth, 68. And the name of the show, N. For Nightmare. The code, A99C05V68N. I spoke the corresponding digit/letters only. But I didn't speak it directly into the microphone. I used the Christmas tree itself. I strategically and subtly tapped the code onto the hard plastic casing of the tree topper, using my fingernail, creating a series of almost inaudible timed micro taps. 1 tap is A, the first letter. 9 taps equal 9, from my birth year. 9 taps equals 9, from my birth year. Wait, long pause. 3 taps equals C, from Mom's name. Wait, long pause. 2 taps equals 0. From the month. 5, I substituted 2 taps for 0. 5 taps equal 5. From the month, 05. Wait, long pause. 3 taps equal V, from Dad's name. 6 taps equals 6, from his birth year. 8 taps equals 8, from his birth year. Wait, long pause. 4 taps, N, from Nightmare, name of the show. The camera would only record the sound of a single rhythmic series of clicks, the noise of me fiddling nervously with the ornament. My parents, focused on the letters I was saying aloud, would never analyze the rhythmic tapping. But Chloe, a visual artist, would recognize the Morse code of the taps when she reviewed the audio footage that she was about to illegally access. The code is A99C05N, I said aloud, giving them the correct final answer, but ensuring the rhythmic code was captured first. Thorne, transmit the code to the system access point immediately, Dad screamed, rushing to the monitor. Thorne began typing the code. I descended the ladder, my mission complete. The code was delivered to my enemies, but a far more potent timed message was already out the door. I looked at my interdictor watch. I had 15 minutes before Chloe reached the old loft. Now, Dad, I said, putting my hands on my hips, erase the panic attack footage. I kept my end of the bargain. As Dad, distracted, rushed to the editing suite to protect his investment, the door chime rang. A uniformed LAPD officer stood outside. Is this the Vance residence? The officer asked politely. We received an anonymous tip about a missing endangered individual being held here against their will under a performance contract. I looked at my mother. I looked at the cameras. I hadn't called the police. Chloe, I whispered. She wasn't just planning the shutdown, she was executing the extraction. The final betrayal was about to be turned on my parents. The sound of the LAPD officer's voice demanding an explanation for the endangered individual hung heavy in the air. The mansion, designed to be a transparent cage for the cameras, was suddenly being infiltrated by an uncontrolled, unpredictable element: the law. My parents, David and Carol, snapped out of their panic over the shutdown code. They were masters of performance, and the threat of legal trouble was the biggest stage of all. "Officer, this is a private residence," Dad boomed, stepping forward to block the doorway. "My son is a genius artist undergoing intensive digital reintegration therapy. He's not endangered, he's challenging the boundaries of performance art." "Yes, officer," Mom added, her voice dripping with maternal concern. "The performance contract is simply a non-disclosure agreement for his next major installation. This is a misunderstanding." I knew the cop was Chloe's insurance policy. It wouldn't get me out, but it would buy her the crucial minutes she needed. My parents were entirely focused on the front door, leaving the back and the editing suite vulnerable. The system shut down. I didn't wait. As my father performed his most dramatic defense of artistic freedom, I made my move. "Dad, I feel sick," I muttered, clutching my stomach. "I need to go to the bathroom." Without waiting for permission, I walked quickly down the hall toward the editing suite, which was conveniently near the master bathroom. Agent Thorne, already distracted by the legal ruckus at the front, hesitated for a split second, the fatal flaw in his security. I slipped into the editing suite, which was now empty. On the main monitor, the system access prompt was blinking, waiting for the 16-digit code. Simultaneously, my interdictor watch, the symbol of my electronic containment, began to emit a steady, high-pitched beep, beep, beep. The signal was coming from the old loft address. Chloe was there. She had retrieved the custom-cased hardware key from the edible flower delivery van and had just plugged it into the loft's main server. Now she needed the code. The micro-taps I made on the tree topper wouldn't be precise enough for a one-time entry. She needed a clear timed sequence. I had to use the one system still connected to the outside world and accessible to me, the security camera's audio system. I grabbed the headset used by the production manager and spoke directly into the main feed, aiming the sound straight into the microphone. "As 99 cameras watch, Chloe, remember 5 times we failed victory for 68 hours now." I wasn't speaking the code. I was speaking the memory anchors. I knew Chloe would recognize Alex 99, my birth year. Chloe / Carol 05. The episode where I sent the encrypted art. V Victory 68. My father's year of birth. Ego. Now. At the loft, Chloe, listening to the main audio feed she had hacked, heard the sentence "time the pauses" and isolated the key numbers and letters that created the shutdown sequence, A99C05. Back in the mansion, the security access screen flashed green. Code accepted. A second later, a digital voice echoed, not from my parents' systems, but from the main Omni Media corporate server: "System blackout initiated. Commencing full deletion protocol." The 99 cameras, the pinhole mics, the soundboards, and the interdictor system all died simultaneously. The living room plunged into a profound, liberating silence. The red light of the surveillance system was finally irreversibly dark. The aftermath. My parents rushed into the editing suite, finding me standing over the dead monitors. "Alex, what did you do?" Dad shrieked, scrambling to revive the monitors. "I ended the show, Dad," I said, finally tearing the useless interdictor watch from my wrist and throwing it onto the floor. "I took creative control of the finale. The audience voted for freedom." The LAPD officer, having found no one in distress, had left, but not before recording a highly suspicious incident report. "The pilot footage is gone," Mom whispered, staring at the black screens. "The entire season advance gone." "Not entirely," I corrected, pulling a small black USB stick from the pocket of my now ruined suit. "I didn't delete everything. I kept a small segment of the final confrontation from episode 2, where you forced me to sign the contract." I looked directly at them, no longer the terrified artist, but a calculated strategist. "The real show isn't Pranks Gone Wrong. It's the calculated revenge of Alex Vance, and the only footage that matters is this, the proof of your illegal coercion." I walked to the door. "You want to talk about investment? You want to talk about a lifestyle change? My price is simple: my freedom. You terminate the contract, publicly apologize, and fund my digital entropy installation, no strings attached. Or this footage goes straight to the LA Times and the district attorney's office. You choose the finale." My parents, faced with ruin and public humiliation, finally saw the true star they had created, not the panicked victim, but the ruthless negotiator. Dad collapsed into his chair, beaten. It's over, Carol. The show is over.
Siniyiniti.
I left the mansion, walking out the front door, past the debris of the fake investor party, and into the cool, silent California night. I was free, financially secure, and most importantly, in control of my own narrative. As I drove away, I saw a reflection of the mansion in the rearview mirror. It was just a house, no cameras, no blinking lights, just a massive, ridiculous symbol of my parents' excess. The panic, the humiliation, the socks, and the contracts were all just the wrapping paper for the real gift, my own autonomy. I pulled over, picked up my non interdicted phone, and finally placed the call to Chloe. It's done, I said simply. The finale was a smash hit.